Rodney Alcala, often referred to as the dating game killer, was a notorious serial killer who operated across the United States from the late 1960s to the late 1970s. Alcala earned his nickname after appearing on the television show The Dating Game in 1978, amidst his killing spree. Known for his charm and good looks, Alcala lured young women to their deaths by promising them modeling opportunities. Alcala's method was particularly cruel. He would often torture his victims, photograph them, and then kill them. He was known for his intelligence, having an IQ of 160, which he used to manipulate and evade capture for years. Alcala's victims were mostly young adult women, whom he strangled, beat, and sexually assaulted before killing. His reign of terror came to an end in 1979, when he was arrested for the murder of 12-year-old Robin Samso, the one-child victim among his known cases. During the investigation, police discovered a storage locker filled with photos of women and teenage girls, many of whom remain unidentified to this day. Alcala was eventually convicted of 5 murders and sentenced to death, though he was suspected of many more. He died of natural causes in 2021, leaving behind a trail of tragedy and unanswered questions about the full extent of his crimes. Angelo Buono Jr. and Kenneth Bianchi, infamously known as the Hillside Stranglers, terrorized Los Angeles between 1977 and 1978. The duo's killing spree involved the abduction, torture, and murder of 10 women, predominantly sex workers and young women, aged 12 to 28, in the hills surrounding the city. Buono and Bianchi used fake police badges to lure their victims into a false sense of security, pretending to arrest them before taking them to Buono's upholstery shop, where they committed their heinous acts. The victims were subjected to brutal torture and strangulation. The pair discarded the bodies in the hills, leading to a citywide panic as more and more victims were discovered. The investigation into the Hillside Stranglers was intense, involving multiple law enforcement agencies. The breakthrough came when Bianchi was arrested for a double murder in Washington state, where he confessed to the murders in Los Angeles and implicated Buono. The trial was one of the longest and most expensive in American history, concluding with both men receiving life sentences without parole. Their chilling crimes left an indelible mark on Los Angeles and remain a stark reminder of the dangers that lurk beneath a seemingly normal facade. Dennis Nilsen, known as the Muswell Hill murderer, was a British serial killer who committed a series of murders in London from 1978 to 1983. Nielsen's victims were mostly young men and homeless individuals whom he lured to his home with promises of food, alcohol, or companionship. Once there, Nilsen would strangle or drown them before performing necrophilic acts. Nilsen's crimes were particularly gruesome. After killing his victims, he would often bathe and dress their bodies, keeping them in his home for extended periods. Nielsen confessed to killing 15 young men, though the true number remains uncertain. His crimes went unnoticed until he attempted to dispose of body parts by flushing them down the toilet, leading to a blockage in the plumbing and the discovery of human remains. Upon his arrest, Nilsen was surprisingly cooperative, providing detailed accounts of his murders. He was convicted of 6 counts of murder and 2 counts of attempted murder, receiving a life sentence in 1983. Nilsen's case shocked the nation and brought attention to the vulnerabilities of young men in society. He died in prison in 2018, leaving behind a legacy of horror and unanswered questions. Gary Ridgway, known as the Green River Killer, was one of the most prolific serial killers in American history, responsible for the murders of at least 49 women in the 1980s and 1990s. Ridgway targeted vulnerable women, particularly sex workers and runaways, in the Seattle-Tacoma area of Washington state. His victims were often strangled and their bodies dumped in remote wooded areas, typically near the Green River. Ridgway evaded capture for nearly 2 decades, despite intense efforts by law enforcement. He often engaged with the media and police, relishing the attention and playing a cat-and-mouse game. The breakthrough in the case came in 2001, when new DNA technology linked him to several victims. Ridgway was arrested and eventually confessed to murdering 71 women, though he was convicted of 49 to avoid the death penalty. In 2003, Ridgway was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. His case remains a chilling example of a cold-blooded predator who operated with impunity for years, exploiting society's most vulnerable individuals. Ridgway's confessions and the sheer scale of his crimes shocked the world, highlighting the dark reality of serial murder. Dennis Rader, known as the BTK killer, bind, torture, kill, terrorized the Wichita, Kansas area for decades, from 1974 to 1991. Rader's victims were typically women, and his gruesome nickname came from his preferred method of murder. Rader's crimes were characterized by his meticulous planning and cruel execution. He would stalk his victims for days, learning their routines before striking. Rader's first known victims were the Otero family, whom he murdered in January 1974. He continued to kill sporadically, leaving behind a trail of terror. Unlike many serial killers, Rader taunted the police and media, sending letters detailing his crimes and mocking their efforts to catch him. His communications, filled with cryptic messages and self-aggrandizing language, demonstrated his desire for notoriety and control. Rader remained active in his community, working as a compliance officer and serving as president of his church council, which helped him maintain his facade. It wasn't until 2005 that Rader was apprehended after a series of communications with the police led them to his doorstep. He confessed to 10 murders and was sentenced to 10 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. Rader's capture ended a long reign of terror and provided closure to the families of his victims, revealing the duality of a man who could blend so seamlessly into society while committing heinous acts. Thanks for joining us as we explored the chilling stories of some of history's lesser-known but equally terrifying serial killers. If you found this video intriguing, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it. Leave a comment below with your thoughts or suggestions for future topics. We appreciate your support and look forward to unraveling more dark tales with you. And remember, every minute is a new mystery.